Chapter 6 of Fortnite is just a week away, and I for one couldn't be happier. This year of Fortnite has been pretty lackluster, with Chapter 2 Remix probably being its standout highlight, to be honest. Chapter 5 made a lot of changes to the game that I know a lot of the player base are very split on, and I hope Epic has noticed this feedback to input it into Chapter 6. So in this video, I'm going to be going over 10 things that Fortnite needs to do in Chapter 6 to improve the overall feel of the game. Now remember, a lot of this is my own personal opinion on what I want from the game, and if you agree or disagree with anything in this video, let me know why in the comments. The first thing I think Fortnite needs to do in Chapter 6 is maybe the point I've seen the most people bring up. We need to go back to hitscan guns. Before Chapter 5, all of the guns, with a few exceptions like snipers, were all hitscan, meaning when you click, the bullet will immediately hit your opponent, a system we've had in the game since the beginning. And at Chapter 5's launch, they turned every gun in the loot pool to projectiles instead of hitscan, meaning that you would have to lead your shot, which I've seen people argue offers a higher skill ceiling, but for the entirety of the chapter, I and many people just found it clunky and unsatisfying to play with. Take a look at this comparison and tell me which one you prefer. Although I do believe I did start adapting to this change as time went on, playing things like Reload and Chapter 2 Remix, in which the guns are hitscan again, made me realize that hitscan just simply feels better to use. Following this, I think there's another change that Chapter 5 made to the weapons that needs to leave in Chapter 6. That being weapon modding. Weapon mods were Chapter 5's big gimmick. Before Season 1 we were waiting for weapon mods for so long, but after their arrival, I feel like a lot of us just found them to be meh. Like, it kind of just felt like you had to mod your weapons for them to even feel like they did anything. Not to mention, you'd have to wait until like over halfway through a match for a bunker to open to even be able to mod your weapons. Like, genuinely, how did they not add any modding benches that weren't in those vaults for the entirety of Chapter 5? And I feel like you know how awful it feels to land on a chest at the beginning of a game just to get an AR with the 4x scope on it. They also kind of made the weapon names just really convoluted to read. Like, sorry, but I don't want to pick up Dave Sigma's Iron Warrior Warforged Assault Rifle. Weapon mods were Chapter 5's gimmick, and I think we should just leave them in Chapter 5. After talking about Chapter 5's gimmick, let's rewind a little bit and talk about Chapter 4's gimmick, Augments. There's been a couple leaks about Augments coming back next season. Now, maybe controversial, but I liked Augments.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Okay, let me specify. I liked Augments in Season 1 of Chapter 4 when they actually allowed you to change up your playstyle and didn't just feel like a chore. You could get things like Glider Redeploy, a Mythic Pistol, a Hop Rock effect when you sprint jump, or gaining Siphon with shotguns. Those were cool. Throughout Seasons 2, 3, and 4, they started adding Augments that kind of just felt like slop. Augments ended up being remembered for the ones you would just have to spend gold to reroll on, like Shrub Mud or any of the various sped up weapon reloads. If we're gonna have Augments back, they need to feel impactful. Something you can play around and not just the most minor gameplay change that you'll forget that you have halfway through a match. The next thing I want from Chapter 6 is probably more of a me thing, but please, Fortnite, go back to your cartoony art style. In Chapter 1, we had super cartoony props with exaggerated shapes that reflected the silliness of the game. As time went on, those props ended up evolving into a solid blend of cartoonish realism in Chapter 2, 3, and 4 that I'd settle for, to be honest. But in Chapter 5, we went all in on realism, and I don't think it works for Fortnite. I've always been a firm believer of stylization over realism, and I loved that Fortnite embraced just how goofy of a game it was. And with a lot of these changes that Chapter 5 made, I feel like Fortnite is sort of losing its identity. Let me know which of these styles you prefer. I'm curious on which style of these is the most popular. Speaking of how the game looks, I want the game to look vibrant and colorful again. Going back to the Chapter 2 map and playing Reload made me realize how washed out Chapter 5 looked in terms of color. I liked how the colors stimulated my little Gen Z brain back in previous chapters. I think it also makes a map look a lot less lifeless. Although I think I'm being a little too harsh on Chapter 5 here. It definitely got better with the colors towards the end, with the Marvel biome specifically being pretty nice to look at. But I did not like the look of a lot of the rest of the map. such as the Olympus biome, the Underworld biome, and especially this grass biome. I honestly really miss the look of Chapter 4. This was the best the game has ever looked in my opinion. It had the insane graphics while still having the vibrant colors, and would sometimes just turn into the most beautiful thing ever. Like, I can just hear the Lady Gaga Judas TikTok edits just looking at this. Next up, can we please stop getting just watered down versions of the guns we already have? Like, I really don't think we need worse versions of the pump, tack, and scar every new chapter. Let's compare. The Striker, the Thunder, and the Hammer especially are all just kind of worse versions of the pump. The Auto, the Maven, and the Gatekeeper all feel worse to use or fight against than the tack, and the same goes for the Scar. And if we do need an entire brand new set of guns for every single chapter launch, can they at least be as good as the old guns? We also have so many items just sitting in the vault unused. Maybe throw a couple of them in the loot pool too. The next thing I think Fortnite needs to change in Chapter 6 is the way they've been doing live events. I think a lot of people would agree with me if I said I miss the old live events. Like, I am grateful that we had mini events throughout Chapter 5 at least, compared to Chapter 4 only having the Big Bang, but I really miss the formula of a live event every second season. Throughout Chapter 2 and 3, we would get a season without an event, and then the next season we would get something big like Skyfire or Collision. And the build-up to these events had hype that Chapter 5 was not even close to hitting. I appreciate the attempt Chapter 5 had at least to give us something though. I honestly think that the removal of this event formula is a part of the reason a lot of people don't care about the Fortnite storyline as much anymore, and I think it'd be great to see it return. Although I have seen people say that apparently the people that worked on these big live events have been changed to focus on things like Festival, Lego, and rocket racing now, but I don't know how true that claim is. Next, something that I thought was nice in Chapter 2 and Chapter 3 was returning locations. Places like Retail Row, Shifty Shafts, or Greasy Groves being on a map, mixed in with the new POIs, was something that I liked a lot. It doesn't even have to be a Chapter 1 location either. Places like Lazy Lake or Slappy Shores or Holly Hedges could easily be put on a new map and fit in. I think the returning of places like these gives a nice feel of familiarity to the map. People that haven't played in a while can look at the map and go, oh, I know that one. And if there's one thing Epic likes doing, it's using your nostalgia. Maybe they could even make old smaller locations / landmarks into full-blown POIs like they've been doing in Reload. My number one pick for something like that would have to be the Viking Village from Chapter 1. Speaking of landmarks, a map isn't just its name locations. A lot of a map's charm is also connected to its landmarks. Some landmarks are so good in fact that you can just land there instead of a named POI, and these landmarks are often some of the most underrated and memorable places on a map. Places like the Viking Village north of Greasy Grove, the Desert Town south of Paradise Palms, the ATK Racetrack south of Lonely Lodge, Camp Cod at the bottom of the Chapter 2 map, the Butter Barn from Chapter 2 Season 5, which ended up making a return in Chapter 3, Deadpool's Yacht during Chapter 2 Season 3, Logjam Woodworks near Holly Hedges, the big gas station in the center of the Chapter 4 map, the factories near Dusty Depot, Yonder Yard, Hydro 16, the weather station, and so many more. But a big reason a lot of these locations are so memorable is the fact that we had them on a map that lasted more than 1 year, which leads me to my final point. Fortnite needs to stop doing 1 year long chapters. We don't get that chance to connect to these locations anymore. Like, I really just felt nothing leaving the Chapter 5 map. It's also getting pretty repetitive. The constant cycle of Season 1 Winterfest to Season 3 Summer to Season 4 Fortnitemares. It's getting pretty stale, to be honest, and it kinda makes me dread getting to Season 3s. If Chapter 6 ends up only being a year long, it'll be our 4th loop of this 1 year cycle. I really think we should be in a chapter for at least 1.5 years, or maybe even 2, to build up that connection to the map. And it would also give the storyline somewhere to go before they'd have to rush finishing it to move on to the next map. I truly do hope Chapter 6 is a return to form for the game. So, to recap, the 10 things I believe Chapter 6 needs is a return to Hitscan, the removal of weapon mods, actually good augments, a cartoony art style, vibrant colors, less watered down versions of old weapons, the old live event formula, returning POIs, memorable landmarks, and it should last longer than a year. If you agree or disagree with any of these picks, or you think there's something else that Fortnite needs to do in Chapter 6, let me know in the comments. I think this is a good discussion topic. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and subscribe to see more content from me. Oh, and for the Fortnite What If fans, check my community tab. I'll be posting a What If video next month. This has been Pumpkal, and I'll see you guys next time. See ya. Catch me on the blacktop lanes, I split. Hit him with a step back, step back. UFC highlights with the range I kick. What's that?